Yes, I will be playing David Crook, and he's a man I had never heard about. And he had an amazing life. He spent some time as a spy as well. He was involved with the KGB, is that right, in Russia for a while. But after spending some time in China, he gave his heart to China and became very involved with shaping the education. And I met Professor Joe, as you said, in 2010. And it was because I was involved in, well, I put together a cast where we did an improvised show, but only using the texts of Shakespeare. And it's something that I absolutely love to do. Of course, I love Shakespeare very, very deeply. Shakespeare's had a transformative effect on my life. And that's part of why I'm here today as well, because this is the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. And so you've heard a lot about Shakespeare in the news, and the Royal Shakespeare Company came over from the UK a couple of months ago, and they did a performance of some of Shakespeare's history plays. So I'm going to talk about from sonnet to epic, poetic forms of the English language. Let me begin by saying, you are welcome, masters, welcome all. I am glad to see thee well. Welcome, good friends. Who wrote that? Yeah? William Shakespeare, yes. Which play is it from? Any guesses? So the next line, this will help you to guess which play it is. Oh, old friend, why thy face is valiant since I saw thee last? Comest thou to beard me in Denmark? Hamlet, of course, yes. Set in Denmark. Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. So, what I'm going to talk about today is what makes the English language such a wonderful vehicle for poetic expression. And what is it about the nation of England or the British Isles that has created so many renowned poets? And part of that has to do with history. So over the course of the next hour, I'm going to take you through a couple of thousand years of history. Another important theme that's going to run through everything I say today is the relationship between the written word and the spoken word. And the way I see it, the written word, when it is in its most exquisite form, its most beautiful form, is the spoken word. And there's no difference. The written word is the spoken word. So I'm going to begin with a quote. Can you read that at the back? Okay. And if you're wondering about this Chinese saying of, are left-handed people clever? The answer is yes. My tongue is the pen of a gifted writer. Who wrote that?
A famous actor.
You're on the right lines. Any more guesses? My tongue is the pen of a gifted writer. Any guesses?
The Chinese writer or English writer?
I would say a Hebrew writer.
Hebrew.
It's from the Bible. It's from one of the Psalms. So, does anyone know who wrote the Psalms?
David.
Yes, King David. So, King David is this wonderful individual who was both a warrior and a musician and a poet. And so these words are attributed to him. My tongue is the pen of a gifted writer. So he's saying the tongue, the spoken word, is the pen, the written word. There's another there's another quote which I really love. I'll just say it to you. The Word became flesh.
Genesis. No.
Close.
No, sorry, not Genesis. The first book of the Bible, of the New Testament.
Okay, you're close.
The second book of the New Testament.
You're getting closer.
The third book.
You're getting closer.
The fourth book of the
The fourth book. The fourth book of the New Testament of the Bible, which is the Gospel of John. So it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So the opening of the Gospel of John, chapter 1, has this beautiful, beautiful, eloquent description of the majesty of God and Jesus being there at the creation of the world. And uses this phrase, the Word became flesh, which I absolutely love. And of course that's talking about the divinity of God becoming flesh, becoming a human being. But for me it also talks to a broader concept, which is some divine expression, some divine idea, some divine concept gets expressed through humanity. And Shakespeare also says, the showing of a heavenly effect in an earthly actor. So heaven comes and gets expressed through the body and voice of an actor. And this, of course, is what the playwright does. We have a playwright in this room, Mr. Vasquez there. He's preparing a play at the moment.
Oh.
And so his words, I hope, are going to be expressed through my body. His word is going to become my flesh. And your words are going to become my flesh through playing David Crook. And so there's going to be a bit of that today. There's going to be there are going to be 3 performances today. 2 of the performances are going to be by me, and 1 of them is going to be by you. So get ready for later on. I'm going to have you perform something. So I'm going to use this remote control here. Okay. Oops. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do.
You need to, shut it off. Yeah.
Let's see if this works. Hey, great. Okay. So the poetic ingredients of the English language. So first question is, if you take all the individual words that Shakespeare used in his plays and his poems, what is the size of his vocabulary? Can anybody guess the vocabulary that Shakespeare used? How many words? 40,000 is a very good guess, you're very close. The number I've heard is 30,000. Does anybody know what this is, the KJV? King James Version, okay, of the Bible. When was it written?
15 something.
When?
15 something?
16 something?
15 something.
So,
Well, it was written by God a long time ago, since the beginning of time.
No.
well, so this is the idea, because Scripture or the Bible says it is God breathed. So it's the idea that God is breathing through man, that God's inspiration is breathing through these writers that create the Bible. Of course, many different writers created the Bible, and then the Bible got translated into English. And there are many, many different translations. So the King James Version is probably the most celebrated version of the Bible because it's considered the most poetic, the most majestic, the most powerful form of expressing the ideas of the Bible in English. And the date? 16-something? 1608, getting close. 1611. So it was commissioned in 1604 and it was completed in 1611. I will be talking some more about the KJV. So what size of vocabulary would you guess the KJV was using?
Probably 30,000.
Huh?
Probably the same as Shakespeare.
Well, I was actually quite surprised by this answer because it's only 8,000. For something to be that eloquent and that powerful using a relatively small vocabulary. And of course it was actually contemporary with Shakespeare. Shakespeare 1563 to 1616. This was created in 1611 towards the end of Shakespeare's life. And what's the size of the English language vocabulary today? 400,000, okay. Any advance on that? I've heard numbers between 500,000 and 1 million. So yes, it's in the right ballpark. So it's got this huge vocabulary. What does that mean for poetry? It means that we have a poet has an enormous treasure house of words to choose from in order to give expression in the English language. And the expression can work on two levels, because the brain can be processing the meanings of words, but just in the way that the heart hears music. We can hear some music and our hearts can be moved. We won't necessarily put that into words. But the idea I want to express is that the English language is not just, of course, about meanings, and all languages are more than just meaning. It's also about the musicality and the rhythm of the words. And the KJV is particularly aware of this, because the translators of the KJV, they understood that the Bible was going to be read in church on Sundays, and people were going to be hearing it. So they wanted that language to be as powerful as possible. The spoken word is the written word. And there's another phrase from the Bible, deep calls to deep. So it's the idea that while the intellect and the brain may be understanding the words, the deep heart is also receiving the deeper message of the Bible. So, can you give me some synonyms for the word eternal? Everlasting. Yeah, any more? Immortal. Constant. Permanent. You have a big vocabulary. That's good. Any more?
The undead.
The undead. Yeah, the undead is a noun, but the equivalent adjective would be undying. Well, these are the synonyms I found for eternal. $45 in total. Just see what's next. Okay, yeah, wealth of synonyms, meaning and sound. And the other point is the flexibility of sentence structure. So if we take this line, now to thy gentler mission, Zephon, go. Who wrote it? Any guesses? I did. This is a line from my poem, Obama's Dream, which I will talk about later. But if we take this one line, so we've got our adverb now, to, preposition, thy, possessive adjective, gentler, adjective, mission, noun, Zephon, proper name, go, verb. Now, I'm not a trained linguist, so I haven't done a scientific study about this. But it seems to me that the English language is incredibly flexible, because think of all the different ways you could say this sentence and have the same meaning. Can anyone rearrange that sentence and still make it mean the same?
Go do what you have to do, Stefan, and be quick about it.
Yes, I mean rearranging these words. Can you rearrange these words?
Seven go to thy gentler mission now.
Yeah. Zephon, go to thy gentler mission now. Now to thy gentler mission go. Zephon. Zephon, now go to thy gentler mission. To thy gentler mission now, Zephon, go. And there's just so many different variations that you can use. And this is incredibly useful for a poet because it gives us so much flexibility. So this is the stanza. Now a stanza means a group of lines of poetry. So the way that I've structured my epic poem, Obama's Dream, is in stanzas of 4 lines. So of all the many variations of this line that I could have used, why did I choose this one? Why did I choose this particular arrangement of words?
Rhyme.
Rhyme, okay. Specifically?
Fo, go, be.
Yeah. So what Ray has pointed out is me is rhyming with be, fo is rhyming with go. So that's why I put the verb at the end of this line, to have that rhyme. So this is the rhyming structure. We call it A, B, A, B. This is the rhyming structure I've used throughout the entire poem. Question?
And more for the number of feet, also 10 syllables per line.
Yes, I'll get to that. Yeah, so as Eugenie has pointed out, there is a consistent number of syllables in the line. There's also a consistent rhythm. And I'll be talking about the rhythm and rhyme later on. So I want to explore why the English language has accumulated such a large vocabulary. And there are 2 stories here. One is the story of the British Isles being invaded by other languages and other nations. Story number 2 is Britain invading other countries and Britain having an empire and taking words from other languages. For instance, the word shampoo comes from India. So India used to be a colony of Great Britain, and that's where the word came from. Another word that the English language has got from the Dutch language is bos, B-O-S-S, because the Dutch word for master is baas, B-A-A-S. So there are many, many examples of this English accumulating words from other languages. I'm not going to talk about story number 2 today, I'm just going to talk about story number 1. So story number 1 really covers about 1,000 years from the Romans, who brought Latin, of course, 43 to 410 AD. Then a series of German tribes from the 5th century AD. So the most common words in the English language come from German. And then the Vikings mostly from Norway and Denmark, and they invaded, and many settled in the British Isles. And then finally the Normans in 1066. So the Normans came from where? France. Okay, so the Normans brought with them Norman French, and every school child in England knows this date. And the significance of it in terms of affecting the language by bringing French in is underlined by the fact that 96% of the property of the English aristocracy, the lands, the houses, the castles and so on, were taken over by French nobles, French aristocrats. So So William of Normandy, who invaded, after he was successful in his invasion, he gave English lands, English properties to his allies and supporters in Normandy. So Melvyn Bragg, he's a very famous commentator in the UK, he works for the BBC. He said Latin was the language, so after 1066, Latin was the language of the church and the law, Norman French, the language of power and the aristocracy, and English, the language of the fields and the streets. Heroes of the English language. So the first one I want to talk about is King Alfred. You remember I was saying that King David was a warrior and a poet? Well, so was this man, King Alfred. He's most famous for defeating the Danish army, the Vikings, at these two battles. But he was also a great writer and a great scholar. And that's why he's sometimes called Alfred the language maker. He wrote a series of translations from Latin to English of the books most needful for all men to know. If he had not won these battles, we might be speaking Danish. Next hero I'm going to talk about, of course now there are thousands of heroes, but I'm just going to talk about several today. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. Now, Chaucer was at court, he was a court official. So he was used to speaking French with other officials. But he wrote the Canterbury Tales, his most famous work, in the English language. So we have many words from Chaucer, such as rumour, theatre, universe.
So those are words that he invented?
They're the first written record of.
In
So
English?
maybe people may have been speaking with these words, but he was the first one to write them down, or that we know about anyway. Princess, superstitious, vulgar, wallet, digestion, these are all words that come from Chaucer. Now sometimes rather than look at the very old paintings of famous people, they look very, very wooden. So I like to put something living, breathing and modern into it. So this is Jude Law, of course. He played Henry V on stage, which is a play by Shakespeare. He made English the official language of the land. So think about that for a second, because up to this time, French was the official language of the land. Why did he make this move?
Power grab.
Huh? Power grab. Can you be more specific?
To grab out the French.
Well, he went to France to make war against the French. And so it was a political decision. So it's absolutely right. You can have a kind of a linguistic battle as well as a battle on the battlefield. So his most famous victory, English school kids talk about this all the time, the Battle of Agincourt of 1415. Why did the English win that battle against the French?
Because I remember that the British Army, the numbers of British Army was actually very small compared to the French Army, and so it was quite hard for them to win the war, but they did.
So yes, it wasn't the British Army yet, it was the English Army. And they were very heavily outnumbered. There were many of them that were sick, they'd already had battles, they were in a foreign country. And of course the question is, what were they doing in France? Did they have any business being there? But that's another question. What was it though that won the battle against a larger number? who's this? So the English archers were very famous. They could shoot very long distances very powerfully with their arrows. And the French had a lot of men on horseback, the cavalry. And there'd been a lot of rain, and there was a lot of mud, and the horses got stuck. And then and the French were overconfident. They kept piling in more and more men, and they just got stuck and fell off their horses, and they drowned, and then they were very, very easy to kill. So it was very bad planning. This was part of what's called the 100 Years' War. And eventually, of course, the French defeated the English, and the English left France. So Shakespeare's play, Henry V, there are many, many famous speeches that come from that play. Let me go back. Okay. Who has heard of Shakespeare? Who has heard of Milton? Okay, about half. Who has heard of Chaucer? Well, you all have, because I talked about it. Who has heard of Tyndale? Okay, 3. Let me introduce you to William Tyndale. He produced the first direct translation of the Bible into English from the Hebrew of the Old Testament and the Greek of the New Testament in 1537. He was killed by assassins of King Henry VIII. So King Henry VIII was the King of England at the time. Why would the king want him dead for translating the Bible?
Maybe it was because that King Henry VIII was about to break up with the Roman Catholics.
The king is the only one that should have the access to the Bible in the Anglican Church.
Well, at the time, copies of the Bible were in Latin, so the common people could not have access to it. So it's the priests, the establishment of the priests, who interpreted the Bible to the people. So it gave them great power. So to create an English language version of the Bible at that time was to take away power from the priesthood, the establishment, and the king, and give it to the people, so the people could they could receive, they could hear from God and speak to God directly. They didn't need the priests. The whole story of the Bible in English is unthinkable without him. So again, the same commentator, Melvin Bragg. Tyndale brought an enrichment of the English language greater than that made by any other man. Can you think, I mean, what a powerful thing that is to say. More than Shakespeare, more than Chaucer, more than Milton, he's saying, this man, Tyndale, had the biggest enrichment of the English language. And again, here are many of the phrases that we use today. Let there be light. That's a very poetic phrase. He is the man who coined it. Fight the good fight, a land flowing with milk and honey. So as Melvin Bragg points out, we talk Tyndale daily. And then, of course, we come to Mr. Shakespeare. 38 plays, 5 narrative poems, 154 sonnets. But when Shakespeare died, only 18 of his plays were in print. So most of the plays that we have of Shakespeare, we would not have, they would not survive if it wasn't for these two men, these two actors, John Hemmings and Henry Condell, because they collected the plays of Shakespeare and put them into one place. It's called the First Folio. Now, we don't know exactly how they did it, but the speculation is that these two actors said to their other actors, come and talk to us, come and tell us what you remember. Because in those days, you didn't give a copy of the play to each actor, you just gave them their lines. And this is the line of the actor before you, these are your lines, this is the line of the actor after. You just got your lines. So to make these plays, they had to say to these actors, come and tell us what you remember so we can recreate the plays of Shakespeare. So it's a huge, huge task that they took on. This guy? Joseph Fiennes, yeah. So the first folio contains 36 plays, of which 18 would otherwise have been lost to us. So that means without this book, we would not have Macbeth, we would not have Twelfth Night, we would not have The Tempest. There were originally 750 copies produced. £1. So in 1623, you could buy a first folio for £1. On May the 25th, you can buy a first folio again, because Christie's, the auction house, are going to have an auction in England. And can you guess the price now?
$2 million.
$1 million. A bargain. So this is just some more detail. Shakespeare coined over 1,600 words still used today. A lot of these phrases, tongue-tied, green-eyed jealousy, the long and the short of it. We use that phrase all the time. Here's the long and the short of it when we're talking about a story or something. Okay, coming back to the Bible. King James, the KJV, commissioned a new translation, 1604. Now Tyndale was just one man. He translated the entire Bible by himself. This Bible had 48 translators. But those translators mostly relied on Tyndale. 80% Tyndale, completed in 1611. So T.S. Eliot, another great poet, describes the KJV's auditory imagination, a feeling for syllable and rhythm, penetrating far below the conscious levels of thought. So this is what I was saying before, the music and the rhythm of the English language is speaking to the heart. It's speaking to the subconscious through its music. And here again, the written word and the spoken word. The very best of literature is written to be spoken. John Milton. So the great political writer and novelist Gore Vidal says that Milton's most famous work, Paradise Lost, the epic poem, the great epic poem, is the masterpiece of the English language. So he's saying, even better than Shakespeare, even better than the Bible, John Milton's Paradise Lost. It retells the story of the war in heaven taken from the Bible and the Garden of Eden. Now, here is a list of the main characters. Significantly, Abdiel. Now, I have taken my name, I changed my name to Abdiel because of this work of literature and because of the example of this character. So Paradise Lost describes a great war in heaven between the angels. And the great angel, Satan, decided he was going to rebel against God. So Satan says to his soldier angels, he says, come with me, we're going to rebel against God. And out of that vast multitude of angels, there's only one who said no. His name is Abdiel. So his great example is why I have taken that name for myself. Abdiel reappears in my epic poem, A Farmer's Dream. And so does the angel Zephon. So Zephon is also another very brave angel who's mentioned in Paradise Lost. These two angels open my book. So the first lines are, "The lights of Washington spread out below. The messengers of God sweep through the skies, alighting on the White House to bestow divine wisdom to counter darkest lies." So the messengers of God, the angels, these two, Abdiel and Zephon. I'm jumping ahead in time now to the 20th century, and I just want to mention, I think, Orwell is the last one. The last of the heroes I want to mention today. Because here is an example of a writer who's not just a great storyteller, not just a great novelist, he's also a prophet. So, what is a prophet? Anyone?
One can form the future.
Okay. So it's okay. A prophet is someone who tells the future, and God inspired. Yes. Anything else? To me, a prophet is, of course, yes, talking about the future. But for me, a prophet also is talking about the present. Because a prophet is seeing things in the present that other people don't see. The prophet may be seeing the obvious, may be seeing with the eyes of God, but the eyes of men and women usually don't. And part of that prophecy is embodied in the language he uses, Big Brother. What does Big Brother mean? Who is Big Brother?
Someone look up to you.
It could be, not in this case, I think.
Almighty.
Big Brother describes a leader, really, a political leader. And actually, yes, you are right, because they use that slogan. This is the government slogan in the book, 1984, the dystopian novel, 1984. They use this phrase, Big Brother is watching over you. So, is it watching over you, or just watching you?
But it's also extended to society. It's both abstract and an actual political leader in society is what you mean also.
So there are many institutions that society creates that can have a very intrusive effect into people's lives. The United Kingdom now is the most watched, we are the most watched population in the world. The last statistic I heard was that there are 8 cameras for every individual living in the United Kingdom. And I think it's just got even worse. I mean, that was several years ago that it was 8. It must be more than that now. And just new cameras are going up just on street corners all the time. It's this feeling of being watched. So Big Brother is watching you. This is the slogan, Big Brother is watching you. Thought crime. Now this is the idea that someone can be thinking illegal thoughts. And the memory hole. Now, the memory hole is a really important one. This is how governments change history to suit their narrative. So I'll give you a very good example of that. Columbus Day. Every year in October, the United States celebrates Columbus Day. The great man who came from Europe and discovered the Americas. He was a slave trader. He was a mass murderer. But that information about Columbus goes into the memory hole. It's inconvenient. We're going to sweep that history away. We don't want to look at it. So this is the genius of the man, that he can create language that can describe what governments do. A prophet of our age. Does anyone know what false flag terrorism is? So he describes something that governments do, which is to create a terrorist act on their own country, an act of terrorism in their own country, and then say they did it, so they can have a war. Okay, I'm now going to share with you a sonnet. So what is a sonnet?
It's a form of poem.
Huh?
It's a form of poem.
It's a form of poem. What specific form of poem?
14 lines.
14 lines, okay. So Shakespeare wrote, well, you can buy a book of Shakespeare's sonnets. There are 154 sonnets in that book. But actually there are more sonnets than that Shakespeare wrote, because he also put sonnets in his plays. So I'm now going to share with you a sonnet of Shakespeare from one of his plays that's spoken by two characters. And you should be able to guess who they are. If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle fine is this: my lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hands too much, which manly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm his holy palmer's kiss. Have not saints lips, and holy palmers too? Aye, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer. Oh then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. Then move not, while my prayer's effect I take. So that is a sonnet, and it's from Romeo and Juliet. So what is a literary device? A literary device is something that writers use or orators use to make the language more powerful. And you can have literary devices of meaning, and you can have literary devices of sound. So I could do a whole other lecture just on this, but I'm going to skip all that detail because I'm just going to talk about rhythm and rhyme today. How does your heart beat? What's the sound of it? When your heart beats, what sound does it make? Professor Joe, I think you need to go to hospital. What's missing from that?
I think like
Da, da, da.
Da, da. Yeah, that's all right. Actually, I want people to do that because I like to say that joke. You need to go to the hospital. So you helped. Yes, the heartbeat. This is the most important rhythm for English language poets. And I have a line. I have a line to share with you which will help you to remember this. The heart beats. common in the English language. And you can say this in the rhythm of the heartbeat. Does anyone want to volunteer to say this line? Well, I haven't said the heartbeat is, I've said the heartbeats.
Yeah, the heartbeats common in the English language.
Okay, so you start to hear the rhythm there. The heartbeats common in, I'm exaggerating of course now. The heartbeats common in the English language. So what we have is bom bom. So I could put a stress mark here. The heartbeats common in the English language. Bom bom, bom bom, bom bom, bom bom, bom bom. So who would like to say the first line of this? Okay, so I'm gonna pick someone. Would you like to say it by yourself?
So long as a man can breathe or eyes can see, so long live this, and this gave the life.
Okay, so you're starting to get some rhythm in the way you're saying it. If you like, you can say it after me. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see.
So long as men can breathe or eyes can see.
So long lives this.
So long lives this.
And this gives life to thee.
And this gives life to thee.
So this is one of the finest examples of iambic pentameter. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. So long lives this, and this gives life to thee. It's a very, very famous couplet from Shakespeare's... Huh?
My correlated.
What?
Is that sonnet? My correlated. No.
It's, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Is how it starts. Sonnet number 18. Okay, so we have a word for the heartbeat rhythm. It's called iambic. So how many heartbeats are in one line? 5. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. So we say iambic heartbeat rhythm pentameter means 5. Iambic pentameter. What's the rhythm of this one?
Same.
The same. Oh, what may man within him hide, though angel on the outward side? So it's the same rhythm. How many beats? 4. So when it's iambic rhythm and 5 beats, we call it iambic pentameter. When it's 4, tetrameter. Yeah.
Can you say that again? I missed it.
If anyone wants, if anybody wants to get the slides, just let me know. I can email them to you, or get my WeChat or something afterwards, and I'll just give me your email addresses. I'll let you have all the slides. Okay, I think probably the best way to approach this one is I say a line, then you say it after me. I'm speaking now to you in poetry.
I'm speaking now to you in poetry.
The form of it known as iambic verse.
The form of it known as iambic verse.
Think of iambic as I am repeated.
Think of iambic as I am repeated.
I am, I am, I am, I am, I am.
I am, I am, I am, I am, I am.
It is the human heartbeat put in words.
It is the human heartbeat put in words.
The form most used by Shakespeare in his plays.
The form most used by Shakespeare in his plays.
And by John Milton in his masterpiece.
And by John Johnson in his masterpiece.
Paradise Lost.
Paradise Lost.
You'll hear 10 syllables.
You'll hear 10 syllables.
In every line.
In every line.
Occasionally 11.
Occasionally 11.
In which the following rhythm dominates.
In which the following rhythm dominates.
Da 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 da. Or when the verse line has a feminine ending.
Or when the verse line has a feminine ending.
Da 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 da. As in the third line of this very poem.
As in the third line of this very poem.
So stressed beats follow unstressed ones, you see.
So stressed beats follow unstressed ones, you see.
When there are 5 such heartbeats in a line,
When there are 5 such heartbeats in a line,
it's called pentameter.
it's called pentameter.
Also observe,
Also observe.
I have in places to maintain the rhythm.
I have in places to maintain the rhythm.
Shortened some words,
Shorten some words.
like following,
Like following.
becomes following,
Becomes following.
and feminine, feminine.
And feminine, feminine.
As, are you aware how often this form's used?
Are you aware how often this form is used?
Throughout the great works of the English language,
Throughout the
Throughout the great works of the English language.
and even in speech patterns every day.
And even in speech patterns every day.
For now, dear students, here's your homework drill,
For now, dear students, here's your homework drill.
which I, by rhyming couplet, would instill.
Which I by running couplet would instill.
For next time, darlings, all you have to do
Next time, darlings, all you have to do
is learn this lesson I've laid out for you.
is learn this lesson I've laid out for you.
Now, what about this one?
Fair is found.
It comes from Macbeth.
It comes from Macbeth, absolutely, yes. What's the rhythm?
3 times 2.
It's 3.
It's reversed.
Okay, well, I'm not actually asking about how many beats there are right now. Just tell me, is this the heartbeat rhythm?
No. Fair.
It's reversed.
It's reversed. So,
What's that one?
as Eugenie pointed out, this is from Shakespeare's play Macbeth. Who's the character who says it? The witches. So you can imagine, fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the filthy air. Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw. You're going to be doing that later.
It breaks the pattern because it's supposed to be ugly. Like
Well, this is very interesting because this is one example of a switch of the rhythm. This is not ba-ba, this is ba-ba-ba. So it's actually starting with a stressed beat. So if you know musical notation, this is iambic. This is that rhythm. So, and apparently this rhythm is very common in Hebrew poetry. Da, 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 da. But Ray makes a good point. What was your point, Ray?
That it breaks the rhythm because the witches are supposed to be. They're supposed to be ugly or they're supposed to be different.
What I've noticed is flower of this purple dye, hit with Cupid's archery, sink in apple of his eye. Who wrote that? Flower of this purple dye, hit with Cupid's archery, sink in apple of his eye. Who put something into somebody's eye? Yes, it's from A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's Oberon, the Fairy King, which is a role I played, yes.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, she surprises Macbeth with these lines and she scares him. That may be why the window is blocked.
So, imagine you're the witches, and you're going to say the English, no, maybe this side should say the English lines. Okay, this side, start with the English lines. This side, do the Chinese. Okay. So, can you all read that?
You can go to the English side.
I don't know if I can make this. Can I make this a bit bigger?
No, I think she means the Chinese.
Oh, you can't read the Chinese. So do the English with us. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay.
Or actually, if you can only do the English, maybe. Do you want to go to that side? Oh, you can stay there. It's up to you if you want to come and join us. Alright, so, this side of the room, we're going to do fair is foul, foul is fair, not through the filthy air. You guys answer with that one.
Okay, right.
And then we'll do this one, you do that one. We'll do this one, you do that. Okay. And make it a contest, okay? So try to be more evil or whatever than we are. Okay. So fair is foul and foul is fair. Here we go. And fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the filthy air.
美丽丑陋丑极美，盘旋火舞月沉飞。
Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw.
团团转在大锅前，如常好入锅里煎。
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
加倍加倍辛苦劳累，火烧汤沸。
I'm very glad we have Caesar with us today. He is an actor and an improviser, and he has an improv troupe here in Beijing. You do Chinese language improv, and I think you might be doing some English language improv too at some point. So let's do it one more time, all at the same time. So we'll be in English, you'll be in Chinese, All together.
All
All together. All right? And fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fifty air.
Round.
Go. Entrails slow. Double, double, toil and trouble. Fire burn, pour and bubble.
Chinese. This
Oh, that's really got me going. Woo.
Is the water coming?
I've got, this is mine, right?
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. I really need it now, after that. So, I don't understand much Chinese, and I certainly don't understand this, but I get the sense this is a good translation. For two reasons. One, because I'm hearing rhyming, and two, because I'm hearing rhythm. So this has been very well translated by a poet who understands the idea of rhythm in poetry. And so, what is the rhythm of these three? What do we call it in English? Trochaic. Trochaic. Exactly. Oh dear. Right. Okay, so different rhyming schemes. We talked about rhythm. Now, I have identified 15 different rhythms used by English poets. I've shown you 2. Okay, I could do another whole lecture just about rhythms, but not today. So now we're going on to rhyme. Blank verse. Blank verse means what?
Prose.
No, not necessarily.
No?
Verse means poetry. But what does it mean by saying blank verse? Huh? It's not about the rhythm, it's about the rhyme.
There is no rhyme.
Exactly. Right, blank verse means there's no rhyme. This is a quote from Milton, because Milton famously did not use any rhyme in Paradise Lost. The masterpiece of the English language has no rhyme. And he says, "My poem is an example of liberty from the troublesome and modern bondage of rhyming." Then we have rhyming couplets. So you remember, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this and this gives life to thee. 2 lines, rhyming couplets. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I still cough sometimes. Then we have heroic quatrain, which is the structure I use in my poem, Obama's Dream. Tennyson, the 19th century English poet, in his poem In Memoriam, uses ABBA. Rhyme Royal, invented by Chaucer, ABABBCC. Shakespearean sonnet, which we've looked at. Yeah, this is the sonnet. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, 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 G. So, this follows the other poem I wrote called Iambic Pentameter. So let's do this one together. It should be by Abdiel LeRoy. Now that you understand iambic verse. The sonnet is the next step in our course.
The sonnet is the next step in our course.
In Shakespeare's methodology, immerse.
In Shakespeare's methodology, immerse
yourself and come to understand his force.
yourself and come to understand his force.
With 14 lines.
With 14 lines.
The rhyme A-B, A-B.
The rhyme A-B, A-B.
Then 2 more groups of 4, C-D, C-D.
Then 2 more groups of 4, C-D, C-D.
And then E-F, E-F.
And then E-F, E-F.
And finally,
a
rhyming couplet that is termed G-G.
A rhyming couplet that is termed GG.
By now you will have ascertained, I think.
By now you will have ascertained, I think.
This lesson's structured in the very form.
This lesson structured in the very form.
The bard himself writ in inspired ink.
The bard himself writ in inspired ink.
And takes about a minute to perform.
And takes about a minute to perform.
And now, in keeping with our accustomed way.
And now, in keeping with our accustomed way.
Go learn this poem.
Go learn this poem.
And celebrate wordplay.
And celebrate wordplay.
So you can tell I have spent some time as an English teacher. So here we have verse, immerse, course, force, A, B, A, B, B, D, E, G. Think, ink, form, perform, way, play. The rhyming couplet at the end. Wonder what that was. Nothing will come of nothing. Blank verse.
Improvise.
Yeah. So, who wrote this? I heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back, uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song, and certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea-maid's music.
Homer?
Huh?
Homer?
Not Homer. Okay, so what kind of a character will hear a mermaid?
A sailor.
Huh?
A sailor. A sailor.
A sailor, possibly.
From Ulysses.
A wife waiting for the husband to come back.
These are all good guesses. This is okay, fairy, yes, getting the right lines. Which fairy?
Tatiana.
Not Titania, but close to Titania.
Simon.
Oberon.
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 Yes. So this is the fairy king Oberon in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's talking to Puck, saying, I heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back. Now, here's the question. So I'm going to give you some pieces of text. I'm going to ask you, what is the rhythm? How many beats? And what is the rhyming scheme? So 3 questions. What is the rhythm of this? It's iambic. It is the heartbeat rhythm. Yes, iambic. How many beats in one line? Yeah, there are 5. And certain stars shot madly from their spheres. And the rhyming?
Blank. Blank.
Blank. It's blank verse. Okay, so this is iambic pentameter and it's blank verse. Okay, same character, Oberon. There sleeps Titania sometime of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. And there the snake throws her enamelled skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in. What's the rhythm? It's iambic again, it's the heartbeat rhythm. How many beats in one line? 5. There sleeps Titania sometime of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. So this is iambic pentameter, and the rhyming? A-A-B-B, yeah. So these are rhyming couplets. ceased when thou dost wake. Do it for thy true love take, love and languish for his sake. What's the rhythm there? Trochaic. Okay. Someone else. Because you've got this. Yeah, I know you've got this. But yes, tis is trochaic. What thou seest when thou dost wake. So it's bum, 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 bum. Do it for thy true love take. And the rhyming. Yeah, A. Now in Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare can do an entire speech just with one line. Hop in his walks and gamble in his eyes. Apricots and dewberries with purple grapes, green figs and mulberries. The honey bags steal from the honey bees, and for night tapers crop their waxen thighs and light them at the fiery glowworm's eyes to have my love to bed and to arise, and pluck the wings from painted butterflies to have my love to bed and to arise, not to Amel's and doing courtesies. So it's in some of these lines in A Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare is like boom, 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 boom. Just rhyme, 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 one after another. I've got my orders messed up here. What's the rhythm of this one? So basically, I've only given you 2 rhythms today. So which of the 2 is it?
It's iambic.
Huh? Yeah, it's iambic. It's the heartbeat. And fire enfolding fire, and from the midst of amber light 4 beings. And the rhyme?
Blank.
Blank verse. No rhyme here. Who wrote it? What? What's the answer? I didn't hear it. Who wrote it?
You did.
I did. I'm going to perform this for you. Okay, so again we have iambic pentameter, A, B, A, B. What's this one? What's the rhyming structure here? A, B, B, A. Morn rhymes with born, night with light. This is Tennyson. What's this one? What's the rhyming structure here? A, B, A, B, what? A, B, B, A, B, A, B, B, and then C, C. Now I told you before what the name of this structure is. Do you remember? What's the rhyming structure? A, B, A, B, B, C, C.
Sonnet.
Sonnet's 14 lines. This is only 7 lines. So if I go back up.
Rhyme royal.
Okay? Yeah, rhyme royal. A, B, A, B, B, C, C. And Shakespeare also uses rhyme royal in one of his long poems. The Rape of Lucrece, I think. Oh, God, you're going too fast. Okay. So this is from another epic poem I'm writing at the moment. Okay. Finally. This is what I've been building up to all this time. This is the reason that I asked you to come here and hear me today. Because I have written an epic poem. And this poem is drawing on everything that I've studied about Shakespeare, about mythology, Paradise Lost, rhyming structure, rhythm, storytelling, all of that stuff culminates in this work. So you don't really have a very good translation in Chinese, I think, for epic poem, because it's what is it in Chinese?
I think very much like history.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have.
So epic really sort of embodies more than just history. It doesn't have to be a historical event. It can be a sort of a mythical journey or something as well. So who's read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens? Okay, so you've read it?
I watched it several times on display in Beijing Playhouse.
Okay, one that Joseph Graves directed.
Chris.
Oh, Chris Ferrell.
Yeah.
Okay, he did a version of A Christmas Carol. So, what happens to Scrooge during Christmas Carol? Yeah.
Spirits came to visit him and actually told him a lesson.
Yeah. So this is a similar idea. President Obama is sleeping. The angels come to him while he's sleeping. They take him on a journey. They teach him a lesson. So the lesson begins with the angel taking him to Guantanamo Bay. So what's Guantanamo Bay?
Cuba.
In Cuba, yeah. What is it?
Where they keep bad people.
You've been listening to too much mainstream news. So it is a notorious prison. It's not the only prison where the United States has tortured people. But this was a profound shock to me, what happened when I was living in the United States, that the United States Constitution, the protections that we are supposed to have, were taken away. Because after 2001, the government could have the power to arrest anyone and keep them without even telling them why they're keeping them, not give them a trial, and torture them. It violates everything. And again, you know, I was talking about Christopher Columbus, the narrative about Christopher Columbus. This is what the United States establishment likes to think about itself. But some of the things go into the memory hole. So what happens is the angel takes Obama to Guantanamo Bay, and Obama has to see the torture that's being carried out by United States military. Obama throws up because it's so horrible. Then the angel takes him to England in the year 1215. So what's the importance of the year 1215 in English history?
The Magna Carta?
Magna Carta. So Magna Carta is one of the earliest written protections of human rights. And last year in Beijing, we had the 800th anniversary, the 8th centenary of Magna Carta. And the original, there are only 3 of these pieces of paper still surviving. One of the original pieces was at the British Embassy in Beijing. I went to see it. It's a very heart-moving moment. So Obama goes to England in 1215. He meets the Greek philosopher Plato. And Plato has a conversation with him about the Constitution of the United States and how the United States is violating it. And Obama says, and Plato says, why aren't you prosecuting the war criminals? Why aren't you prosecuting the people who tortured prisoners? And Obama says, we must look forward, not back. This is something that Obama himself said in 2009 when he was asked that question. We have to look forward, not back. So Plato says, what crime is committed in the future? How can you build your future on a past that is unhealed? So they have this conversation, and then Plato says, okay, you've had a conversation, I'm going to send you to the next part. And he sends Obama next into space. Obama goes flying through space, and he comes to a door. And he goes through that door, and he lands in the temple of God. And a lot of what happens in the temple of God is taken from the Bible. The throne of God. And around the throne of God are 4 great beings. 4 very, very powerful, magnificent angels. One of them is Abdiel. So this cover is kind of depicting the scene in the temple of God. And in the temple of God, Obama feels this terrible weight of guilt. But one of the angels takes this burning coal. This is taken from the Bible. He takes the burning coal, he places it on Obama's lips, and he says, this has healed your lips. And then some 2 beautiful women come in. So Abdiel creates a cylinder of light around Obama, kind of like a changing room. And he says, take off your clothes. And then 2 beautiful maidens come in, and they give him fresh clothes. And he comes out, and he's all clothed in white. And when he comes out, he meets his godmother. His godmother's name is Willie Barrow. She died only a few years ago, so he meets her in heaven. And he meets Maya Angelou, who is a great poet that Obama himself admires. And then they all start dancing, and the whole of heaven starts dancing. And they come to a waterfall, and they go through the waterfall, and Obama wakes up. His dream has ended. And he sees 2 birds just outside the window. Those 2 birds are, of course, the angels. The 2 angels that came to him at the beginning. And then he has breakfast with his family, and then when they're talking over breakfast, they realize they've all had a magnificent dream, because the angels came and they poured some magic potion on the eyes of all the family. The 2 girls, Sasha and Malia, and Michelle Obama, all had this sort of angelic vision and dream during the night. So this is what transforms Obama in the same way that the spirits transform Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. So what I've aimed to do is, so the form, what's the rhyming structure? It's iambic, yeah, that iambic pentameter is the rhythm, and what's the rhyming structure? Do you remember? So the opening verse is, the lights of Washington spread out below, the messengers of God sweep through the skies, alighting on the White House to bestow divine wisdom to counter darkest lies. What's that rhyming structure? It's A, B, A, B. So the whole poem is in this form. It's a political treatise, a journey of transformation, a battle for the soul of humanity, and I trust a great story. Prophets and kings. So this is the idea that in the Bible, in the Old Testament of the Bible, there is tension between the rulers and the prophets. So we talked about how the prophets, they talk about the future, but they also talk about the present. They talk about what other people cannot see. And they also rebuke kings. It's kind of a prophet's job. If the leaders are acting against the will of God, if they're acting against truth, it is the prophet's job to point it out to them. And we have a saying in America, it's a popular saying among political dissidents, if you like, is to say, speaking truth to power. So this is what the prophets do, speaking truth to power. And Tony Benn, a very famous British politician, said he was brought up on these stories from the Bible by his mother about the conflict between the kings who have power and the prophets who preach righteousness and she taught me to support the prophets and not the kings. So this book is written to support the prophets and not the king, not the president, not the person in power. Literary inspirations, the Bible, obviously, and Ezekiel chapter 1. So I'm going to take you now on an imaginary journey. Bear with me for a second. So one of my favorite places in the Bible is by the prophet Ezekiel. And Ezekiel goes to heaven and he sees the throne of God and he sees the great angels and he writes about it. And this inspired me to write a poem. It's called Ezekiel's Vision. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to perform it now to music. And the music was written by Vaughan Williams, an English composer, based on a theme of Thomas Tallis, who is another English composer. So the music helps to transport me in my imagination. Can you tell me what the poets Homer and Milton had in common? Yeah?
Blind.
They were both blind. And I think this gave them great power. They weren't seeing with the eyes of the body, they were seeing with the eyes of imagination. So Milton completed Paradise Lost when he was blind, and Homer wrote the Odyssey when he was blind, and saw in his imagination. So what I'm going to do this with my eyes closed. Go on this imaginary journey. And I'm going to invite you to come with me on this imaginary journey. And if you would like to close your eyes, you are very welcome to do so. It's up to you. Let me see if we can just get a bit more volume on the sound. Anybody know how to do this? I don't. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I just don't think it's going to. Maybe that's as loud. Was that volume? Okay. All right. We might be a little bit low on the volume, but I'll do my best. Thank you. And that's at the maximum. All right. The heavens open, and I see a whirlwind in the north, great cloud, and fire enfolding fire, and from the midst of amber light, 4 beings burning as burnished brass. Behold, each has 4 wings, each 4 faces, a lion, a bull, a man, an eagle. By each, a great wheel edged with fire. A wheel within a wheel. Now, above me, are their wings outstretched. I hear their sound, like as the roar of rushing waters. Like the voice of the Almighty, like the tumult of an army. A throne of sapphire is before me, and on the throne, a figure like that of a man, his eyes like blazing fire, his face as the sun shining in its strength. From the waist up, like glowing metal, as full of fire. From the waist down, like fire, and brilliant light surrounds him. Like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so is the radiance around him. He is encompassed by a sea of crystal, clear as glass, whereon blaze 7 lamps, the 7 spirits, while from the realm about the throne, there, lightning flashes, thunder roars. Such is the glory of the Lord, that seeing it, I fall face down and hear the voice of one speaking. Fear not. I am the first and last, the Alpha and the Omega, who is, who was, who is to come. I hold the keys of death and Hades. Write therefore of the things you see, what is, and what will be hereafter. And now am I like fire and light. Alas, the music was not that loud.